What we're doing right now is we're pulling out the valves. Now, this one here I've already cleaned, and I'm only cleaning up with a wire brush because I don't have the tool to resurface it to make sure that the mounting surfaces are perfect. But we are going to test fit each and every valve individually and make sure they go back in their factory locations. But I did build a very nice, crappy homemade tool out of a 1-inch wrench, and this is what is taking the valve springs out. What we're doing... Okay, come on over here. What we're doing is this sits here on the back of the head, and it just gets tightened down with the rocker arm, and we're able to take the actual spring apart without any dangerous compression. Yes, I could have bought a valve spring compressor, but I don't have the money for that. So we're going to do all these and clean them all up, put everything back together, make sure everything's clean, and like what we're pulling out of these heads is kids' homework, like paper. They shoved paper inside this motor, and because it was in a high school, I guess the students really hated the teacher, but we're going to clean it all up, put it all back together, and then basically these are done. So please stay tuned until we get these done. Well, it's been a while. Maybe not for you guys as YouTube viewers, but me, it's probably been a month and a half since I've had time and I've had tools to work on this. Now, when we rebuilt this cylinder head, you guys see me do it with a wrench, you see me do it basically a pry bar, and we've kind of got a little bit of surprise for the other head. Now, the other head, I was able to actually source out a valve spring compressor. So, I didn't need this, but I wanted this. And what we're going to do is we're going to do the other head right now with the valve spring compressor, and just to show you guys how much easier it is with the proper tool for the job. This one here, I had quite a bit of problems. I ended up breaking the tool that I made for it. I ended up just putting a nut and then a washer and then using a wrench to pry it down. It ended up being a giant pain in the ass, and I don't recommend it. I borrowed this from a buddy, but it actually turned out to be a lot cheaper than what I was actually thinking. These you can buy at Princess Auto and stuff like that. They're actually not that expensive, but let's get started on the other head with the actual valve spring compressor and see how well this goes. Now this head we're going to do a little bit differently. We're going to do all the intake and exhaust ones separately. So what we're going to do is we're just going to open the tool up, put it onto the head, put it right onto there. It needs to be opened up a bit. Well, apparently that's as large as we're going to get it. So just put it right over top of the valve spring. This is not going to go as easy as I thought. Jesus. With the proper tool for the job, it will go much easier. I'm going to do the rest of these, and I'll see you guys back here in about, I guess, 20 minutes. The reason why we are rebuilding the heads is because these valves are actually pretty gunked up with carbon. As you can see, it's actually catching this. And this is what I'm turning them into. You see how this one is nice and shiny with no lip? Even where they seat inside the head is nice and clean. And I will be test fitting all these, checking for gaps and all that with a feeler gauge and doing everything the proper way it should be done. But what we're doing is we're just basically cleaning all the valves and putting them back in, and then replacing all of the seals at the top of it because the seals are gone on all of these. So that's why we're actually taking this head apart. Now with all the exhaust valves out and cleaned, I'll put those off to the side with the corresponding springs, and I can start on the intake side. We're going to do the exact same thing for the intake as we did the exhaust, so let's get going. Same thing for the intake valves. Take a look how gunked up that is. I imagine this thing was passing a little bit of oil, if not running some crappy fuel back in the 80s. And I bet you 20 years of sitting inside of a heated workshop didn't help either. So let's clean them up to get them to look like this compared to that. Perfect! We'll get them all cleaned up and reinstalled. Now with the cylinder head all cleaned up, I've got all the intake valves put back in there. We're going to put the O-rings on the top of it, and we're going to reassemble it along with all the intake springs, and then we're going to do the exhaust valves. So stick with us, guys, and let's get this done. So the head is got all the springs put back in except these two, and the reason is because the top caps shot out. The spring compressor was not doing its job and they shot out. But we'll get those put back in. I'm waiting for the parts to arrive tomorrow morning, so those will be put back in, and then everything will be put onto this motor and torqued to spec just like the driver's side. So tomorrow we will get the head put on, head gaskets, we'll torque the head to spec, and then we'll go 10 foot-pounds over spec holding these heads on. Now the reason I do that is because I find it helps with the heat to make sure the water and the piston compression stays apart. I don't know if it actually helps. I've actually read a lot of stuff about it on We Crash. I find it helps. I've never had a head gasket blow out on me without me doing something obviously super stupid to it. So we will over torque these. So we have the head on the motor now, and I just have my gun here. It's turned down. All I'm going to do is I'm going to start my way from the outside and work my way around. So in a circular motion to help work the air out. So I'm not going to gun it tight, just like that. So 1, 2, in a circular motion. Now with that all done, the design torque for this motor and this head is 65 foot-pounds. So let's get our torque wrench set up. Torque wrench! You guys remember how to set this up? So let's spin this up to 65. 65! Let's get our torque. Same thing we're going to do is we're going to work our way in the circular motion that we were doing earlier. And the reason why we work in a circular motion is to help work the air out of the cylinder, between the gasket and the head cylinder. Now, a lot of you guys may say that I'm not following the actual design torque spec of these heads to the design pattern, but realistically, this works for me. I've never had an issue doing it like this. As long as you get out all the air that's in between the cylinders, that's all you really need to do. So now that it's to factory torque specs at 65, we're going to ramp up our game just a bit and go to 75. And like I said, the reason I do this is because I find that it actually helps with the heat of the motors. It actually helps keep everything together, because under immense heat, everything starts swelling and stretching, and you don't want your bolts to stretch and your head lose compression and you blow the head gaskets out of it. So let's start in the middle and just do our circular rotation. What it ends up being is about a 1/16 of a turn over factory, and I find that's just a good number, I find. If any of you guys are used to the Ford diesels, the 6 liters are like torqued, I think it's like 85 foot-pounds, and then stretch a 1/4 turn. So you actually stretch the head bolts, stretch the torque kind of thing. And it's basically what we're doing with these, even though they're not designed for it. But it works. So there you guys go. We have both heads torqued to the motor, and basically we're done for today. So thanks for watching Zach's Workshop. Make sure you guys come back tomorrow. Don't forget to hit the like button down below.